Welcome to Elevate Your Ride, the podcast dedicated to elevating your performance in the saddle. I'm Ellie, your personal trainer.
And I'm Lauren, your mindset coach.
So today we have Jennifer Kyle back again to talk to us a little bit more about fitness. So, Jennifer, can you tell me a little bit about your philosophy when it comes to training for all your physical activities? Because you do marathon running, you do horseback riding. So, tell me a little bit about all of that.
Yeah, I think right now my biggest focus is just staying healthy and strong enough to do all the activities I want to do. I'm in my mid 30s now and staying fit, being able to go for a run with my friends, go ride my horse, feel healthy and strong, not get tired running around chasing after my puppy. Functional fitness is my goal at this point in my life, and it makes working out so much more fun when that's your mindset.
Can you tell me a little bit about how you train differently for the marathon training versus riding in general?
Yes, absolutely. So I haven't run a marathon in a few years now, but when you're really in the depths of marathon training, it's hard to have time for everything. So strength training can sometimes fall by the wayside, which admittedly isn't ideal. Even when you're marathon training, strength training is always going to have a place in your routine. But obviously, if you're spending multiple hours a week running, it's a little hard to balance it. Whereas running, I'm a little bit more focused on endurance, but with riding, I'm a little bit more focused on strength. So I noticed a few years back when I was starting to learn to jump, was getting into jumping some bigger jumps and I was having so much fun doing it, but I would get done jumping a course, which probably takes 2 minutes to jump 8 jumps, a normal hunter course. And I would be so tired and feel like I wasn't staying with my horse over the larger jumps very well. So I started focusing more on strength training than I ever had before, just because I wanted to be strong enough to stay with him and not look like a sack of potatoes flopping around over the jumps and also to feel secure. So I would say with the running, it's definitely more focused on endurance. Riding is a little bit more focused on strength, although endurance comes in handy no matter what you're doing.
When did you realize that you needed to prioritize your fitness to be the best rider that you can be, to be the best marathon runner that you can be? When did that moment happen for you?
I would say in my younger years in college and more in my early 20s, I was a little bit more focused on just aesthetically looking a certain way. And as I've gotten older, it's really shifted and I'm much more focused on feeling good, feeling strong, and being able to enjoy my sports and activities however I want to enjoy them. So I would say, honestly, probably late 20s, early 30s, it really shifted for me. When I was 25, I qualified for Boston. And that really cemented for me, like, you cannot be doing this and running at this level if you're just thinking about how you look. You have to be strong. You have to really take care of your body and really fuel it. Make sure that you're doing all the little things, foam rolling, mobility, strength, injury prevention. So it's a really beautiful thing about getting older. You care a lot less about how you look and you focus more about how you feel. So I would say probably around that time in my life is when that shift happened for me.
Does training for your marathon running impact your training for your riding and vice versa?
I think the biggest thing, if I'm doing both at the same time, is balancing the long run. For marathon training, you have to run long at least once a week. So there's usually on a Saturday or a Sunday is when most people do it, but Saturdays are also when I have big jumping lessons. So I had to figure out how to balance those things along with strength training. And all of that has to contribute to not overtraining. I have to be careful that I'm getting enough rest. So I try to be really intentional about it. And usually on Sunday afternoon or, even Monday morning, I'll sit down and plan out my week of workouts, including my riding in those workouts so that I'm not doing a really heavy leg day and then going into a jumping lesson the next day when my legs are completely shot, or planning to have a long run on the same day as my lesson and being really tired from my lesson for the long run. You just have to decide, okay, what do I need to get done in this week? Which workouts are going to be prioritized? And then build your week around that. And I'm able to have a little bit of flexibility in my schedule, but it's not to say that doesn't mean there are times that I'm waking up at 4 a.m. to do a long run just to make sure that it's done in a time that's convenient for me, which my husband thinks is insane. But, you have to just be, I think, a little bit intentional about what you're trying to achieve, what your goals are. And there are going to be some times when, if you're training for a marathon, that's going to come first. And then there's going to be sometimes, and let's be real, we're horse girls. So horses are going to trump pretty much everything else. So, how do you just build your goals to support all of those things?
I would imagine that would be really difficult to do the marathon type training while also riding horses, while also strength training. Like if a client came to me and told me that they wanted to do all those things, I would be thinking, how the heck are we going to create the right program for you where you're still able to hit all your goals in those areas without overtraining? So I know that you talked about prioritizing your rest, but can you speak a little bit more about how you do that and why that is so important?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I haven't run a marathon in a few years, so there hasn't been a ton of overlap. I really got into marathon training when I was taking a break from riding horses because if I quit one all consuming sport, I clearly needed another one right behind it. So I did a half marathon this past fall and I did it in a time of year when I wasn't showing as much. So as the long runs got longer, the showing season tapered off. So thinking about the time frame, and I would say it's really important if you are a runner or if you are doing another sport that involves fitness to make sure that you are planning your time frames to balance out with your showing. You don't want to be doing some huge running event marathon at the same time that you're in the depths of show season. You got to make sure that you're giving yourself enough time to prep and enough time to rest. And like right now, I'm not training for anything running wise. So I'm just running to stay fit. I'm running because I enjoy it. I talk with my friends while I run. We go on runs together. We meet up in the morning. So it's just a matter of, I think, picking the times. And it's also very important if you are somebody who likes running and you're getting into doing races, not to do too many. That was a mistake that I made when I first started. I would do 2 or 3 marathons a year. That's just not great for your body. So making sure that you're not overdoing it. It's just how we would never send our horse to multiple shows back to back for a long time. You wouldn't want to do that to your own body as well.
How do you avoid being sore? Let's say that you're gonna go on a 10-mile run and then the next day you have a jumping lesson or vice versa. How do you manage all of that?
So I'm going to answer this in two parts. The first part is I try really hard to plan things so that I'm not stacking big workouts back to back. So if I know I have a 10-mile run and I know I'm going to take 2 jumping lessons, I might try and do the 10-mile run Monday before work and then have my jumping lessons Wednesday and Saturday. And that would give me enough time to recover. The second part of my answer is sometimes you're going to be working out on tired legs or you're going to be training on sore muscles. And as long as you're not using the same muscles, so like you would never do leg day back to back. But if you are a little bit sore and tired, sometimes I almost look at it as a way of training because at a horse show, we're not always at our peak. We're not always feeling the best. I don't know about you girls, but Sunday afternoon at the horse show, my body is tired. So I also look at the opportunity to train with tired muscles as setting myself up for success at the very end of the race when I am not feeling my best. I know how to push through that pain. I know how to push through that tiredness, or when I'm jumping my final equitation course at the horse show after a long week and remembering to keep my shoulders back and my back strong and my core tight, even when I am tired. So I try not to do it if I can help it. But when it does happen, which it inevitably does, because anything with horses, nothing ever goes to plan. So I try to look at it as a training opportunity.
I think that's a really good point of you're not always going to feel 100% full energy. Your body might not always feel 100% when you go to your workout or when you go to the horse show or when you go to ride, but you still need to be able to perform. So I do agree that if you practice through that fatigue, then that's going to help set you up for success when you are fatigued at the show or when you're towards the end of your marathon and you're like, oh, like I've got 3 or 4 more miles, but I'm dead. Like figuring out how to dig deep mentally and physically is super important, and I think it is important to train like that. Hi, everyone. It's your personal trainer, Ellie. If you're looking to become a stronger, more balanced, and flexible rider, I'm here to help. I offer virtual personal training sessions and customized workout plans that you can complete on your own. As a fellow competitor, I understand the physical demands riding requires, And my goal is to help you perform your best for your horse, whether you're preparing for a show or just want to improve your everyday rides. Visit lopeanddowntherailfitness.com or click on my website tab in the notes of this podcast episode to learn more. Let's work together to elevate your ride.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we ask that of our horses at times, and we work really hard to make sure that they get the rest and recovery that they need. But they also learn how to compete and perform when they're a little bit tired. And so making sure that you can physically support your horse when you're in that space is really important. And I think at the same time, taking the rest when you need it is also okay. If you aren't feeling a workout one day because your body is just trashed, take a rest day. I find that it's really helpful for me to think about it the way that I think about training my horse. If I got on my horse one day and I knew we had a tough workout the day before and he just didn't feel right, I would never push him through it. Whereas I'm way harder on myself, but I would never, ever put him in that position. I try to think about that for my own self as well and take the rest when I need it.
Yeah, for sure. Something that I always tell my clients is you need to push through fatigue, but don't push through pain. So let's say that you go and you go run, right? And the next day you wanted to go and jump. I know you said you try not to do that, but I bet sometimes that does happen. Let's say that your muscles are sore and they're fatigued and they don't feel 100%, but you're still going to go push through that jumping lesson, right? Let's say while you were running, you twisted your ankle. You're not going to go push through that in a ride. You know what I mean? There's a
Yes,
difference
absolutely.
between pushing through fatigue and pushing through more of an injury or a pain. You don't wanna push through that, but you do wanna try and push through that fatigue, otherwise you're never gonna get it done. Life is too busy.
So, do you have a personal trainer that's helped you form all these routines?
Yeah, I don't work with somebody right now. I have had just the absolute benefit of working with a ton of different people throughout my young adult life. So, when I was in college, I worked with a really great strength training coach. I've had several different running coaches over the years. I recently was working with a personal trainer, but vet bills got in the way of that. But I have so many different skill sets that I've taken away from all of those different personal trainers. And I think if it's something that you have the resources for, it's so helpful. It helps you establish a routine. Learning how to have good form while you're lifting weights is incredibly important. You can hurt yourself very easily if you don't do that. There's a lot of really good resources, people like Ellie, like yourself, that do virtual training that makes it a lot more attainable for people. And it's something that has really helped me throughout my life. And I always make sure to go to somebody who is certified and who has experience and who has trained with clients before, who's trained through some injuries themselves so that they what they're working with, and it helped me so much. But it's not something I have going on right now.
What are the biggest things that you've learned from working with personal trainers?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. So many things. I think form number one is the biggest, most important thing because when you leave a workout and you feel sore, that can be a great feeling, but it's got to be the right kind of sore. You don't want to do deadlifts and hurt your low back and not be able to get on your horse and ride the next day. Soreness in the right part of your back is totally okay, but there's definitely a really easy way to pull a muscle or hurt yourself if you're lifting the wrong way. So I'd say that's number one. Number two is fueling myself and making sure that I've got enough calories on board for the right times and the right workouts because I've gotten to work with a few trainers who were also nutritionists. So that's been really helpful. And then I would say probably the third thing is just building the habit. So I think we've all experienced burnout or lack of motivation or just sheer exhaustion. You're never going to wake up every day and feel like, man, I really can't wait to get up before the sun comes up and go out into the cold and the dark, because of course right now it's winter, or out into the humidity and the heat and do this workout. So building the habit is something that having a personal trainer has really helped me with.
What are your favorite exercises to do?
Oh, good question. Running is obviously one of my favorites. I really enjoy running. I especially love like a chatty, easy paced run with my friends. For strength training, I love doing squats and deadlifts. They make me feel so strong. I can't lift like super heavy, but it makes me feel really badass to do some squats and some deadlifts. I really enjoy that. And then I really enjoy bent over rows. I don't know what it is about that particular move, but it mimics the way that my body is when I'm going over a jump. And I feel like it really helps me be strong in my equitation for being over the jump. Because as somebody who has grown up showing quarter horses and doing horsemanship and doing Western riding and Western pleasure, training those muscles to really have a forward seat is something that I've had to focus on.
Yeah, how have you had to change your training in the gym to train for jumping as opposed to when you were riding the all around?
Stability is number one. So, a lot of single leg exercises, a lot of core exercises, planks are really important, but making sure that I can be stable because as somebody who's new to jumping, sometimes I get left behind or sometimes I'm out too far in front of my horse and I don't want to ever like pop him in the mouth because I wasn't in the right place at the right time. So, if I can be physically strong enough to hold my body where it needs to be, it helps him jump better. It helps me stay out of his way. And if there is a mistake, it helps him cover it up for me. Bless him. So I really like doing all of the stability training to stay strong for all the jumping classes.
What is the biggest difference physically riding the jumpers versus riding the all around? Like, where do you find that you're getting more sore? Where did you find that you had to strengthen more? That sort of thing.
Oh my gosh. I have this video of one of my first jumping lessons, and the person who I'm training with is like, lean forward, lean forward, lean forward. And I think I thought that I was so far forward in that video, and I am sitting straight up and down. I think just from like the Western riding, you really learn to sit back on your pockets. You'll hear your horse trainer tell you that when you're showing in the Western events. And even the AQHA style of hunt seat riding is a little bit more rocked back. Whereas if you're going over fences, you've got to be much more forward. So I noticed that like my hamstrings were a lot more sore and getting a lot deeper. Had to do a lot of mobility to be able to get deeper in my heels. So sitting down deeper in the saddle. And then I also noticed that my back getting a little bit tired because you've got to be able to hold your shoulders back while you're also, bent at a not quite 90-degree angle, but it feels that way. It feels that way
Right.
when you're a reformed Western rider. So it was something that I really had to focus on was that like band of muscles between my shoulder blades to really hold them back.
That was one thing that I realized when I dabbled in jumping was how much my upper back and even lower back just were lit up from two pointing around the arena and trying to
Yes.
stay up with the horse and thinking, "My back is their back. Let's be strong."
I love that. My back is their back. That's a great way to think of it.
Are you looking for that extra competitive edge, struggling with show pin anxiety, or looking to set and achieve meaningful goals with your horse? Schedule a session with me, Lauren, your dedicated mindset coach. As an experienced competitor, I understand the mental demands required to excel at the highest level, and I'm here to support you in building a plan to help you stay accountable and reaching those goals. For more information, check out laurencervelli.com or click on the website link in our show notes. Let's work together to elevate your ride.
How is showing different for you physically? Because obviously, I know at the all around, you might be showing 3 or 4 different events in the same day. How is it different going to a jumping show for your body?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's just those different muscles are fatigued differently because for sure where you're doing jumping, you might still be jumping 3 or 4 rounds a day. And with that, you've got warm up jumps and then you've got cool down. You are oftentimes running around from ring to ring so that you can watch people. The all around is so intense. I would say doing the hunter jumper horse shows, they're a little bit calmer in terms of you usually know what time you're going to be in the ring. You get your schedule the night before. And so you can plan your day a little bit more. Obviously, it's a horse show, so you can still have things go haywire, but it a little bit more planned out. So it's just a different type of fatigue. It's really just those different muscles because you are doing a more similar movement throughout the day, whereas the all around, you're doing all different events. So you've got to be able to adapt from morning to afternoon to lunchtime. So I think while the jumping is very challenging, the all around, you've gotta be a little bit more adaptive.
Do you feel like the days are just as long at a jumping show versus an all around show?
I would say all around days are a lot longer, especially when you're at the big shows like the Sun Circuit or some of the other shows where there's 50 horses in a horsemanship class, the days go on far longer.
So, do you find that after you come home from an all around show, you have to focus more on your recovery than coming home from a jumping show?
I think with both, I try really hard to build in a little bit of a recovery period for not only my body, but just getting my life back together and the post horse show hangover. So, yeah, with both horse shows, I do try to take a couple days off of working out and just do a little bit more mobility, stretching, TLC, foam rolling. I always take my foam roller with me to a horse show if I can.
I
Yes.
knew Ellie would like that.
Yes, it's the best.
I usually don't take my full-on foam roller because when I go to the horse shows, I usually stay in the trailer on site, and
Okay.
it's a pretty small like, it's just a living quarter horse trailer, and, like, with
Yeah.
dog and everything, like, there's not space on the floor for me to get down on the ground, and it's dirty. I don't like sounds silly,
Right.
I don't like to get dirty.
That's not
Um
silly at all, especially if you're trying to keep your show clothes clean.
Yeah, so I don't bring my full-on foam roller, but what I do is I have this little it's called a release and recovery ball set, and basically it's these
Yeah.
3 little balls. Lululemon sells them, and I love them. They go with me everywhere, and it's these 3 little balls. They're about the size of a tennis ball or a golf ball, and there's a couple different textures, and it does the same thing as it's like a mini foam roller. 'Cause my
Yeah.
neck gets really tight when I go to shows, especially if the horse show is really cold.
I love that.
Can you tell me a little bit about your nutrition when you go to a horse show?
Yes, absolutely. I think good nutrition during a horse show is going to be really hard. You're starting really early, you're going a million miles an hour. Sometimes you only have what is available at the horse show. So I try to bring some things with me if I can. I'll bring some protein bars or put a couple things in my tack trunk or in my car or backpack, whatever, just to make sure that I've got food around. I think people get really worried about eating healthy and making sure that they're only eating a salad or something during the day, but your body needs carbohydrates for energy. So don't be afraid to have a sandwich or have a muffin or have a bagel. And I know a muffin's probably not the healthiest thing, but you're sweating, you're burning a lot of calories, you're working really hard. Your body needs carbohydrates for fuel. So just be careful. I know a lot of people are, oh, I want to be healthy. I want to make sure that I'm not eating carbs are bad. Carbs are not bad. Carbs are what your brain uses.
Preach it.
Think it's what your body uses to move. Don't be the person that eats a salad for lunch and then goes and forgets their pattern. So I have learned this from running. A little bit of carbohydrates and a little bit of caffeine go a really long way if you're feeling rough. Don't be afraid to have the soft pretzel and a Coke. If you feel like you need a little pick me up, do prioritize protein. Do make sure that you're eating throughout the day. If you're somebody that gets nervous and gets a little bit of a jumbly tummy, just plan to make sure you've got enough calories on board because we spend a lot of time and money and effort getting ready for these horse shows and getting to the horse shows. So I just really encourage people that make sure that you're eating throughout the day. And we manage our horses' nutrition at the horse shows so closely. Do the same thing for yourself. Make sure that the whole team is fueled and you are a very important part of the team.
Yeah, it's about eating to fuel your body as opposed to just eating healthy. Like, those aren't necessarily the same thing.
Agreed. Yeah. And I think making sure that you have something on board to get you through the event that you're there to compete in is a lot better mindset than this fear mindset of, oh no, food is bad and I'm going to gain weight and I don't want to be unhealthy. I would really just think about it as you're putting gas in the car to make sure that you can get where you need to go.
Let's say you go out to dinner after having a long day of showing and you're gonna have another long day of showing the next day, and you go to the restaurant and you order a salad. While that seems like a healthy option, that's not gonna be what refuels your body for the next day. You need to refuel and re-energize so that you can have the best performance for the next day.
Totally. Have the salad, but have a potato, have some chicken, have some protein, have chili with beans in it if you don't like meat. Make sure that you're getting enough protein and have a glass of wine because we work really hard if you like wine.
Yeah, I've found that at horse shows, I eat way more carbs than I do when I'm at home, but I need them. And it makes me just a much better student for my trainers. It makes me a way better rider for my horses. And I just don't think I could go to a horse show without prioritizing my nutrition and expect to do well.
Hey, Elevate Your Ride fans. Are you loving our show and looking for a way to show your support? Check out our line of Elevate Your Ride merchandise. From stylish t shirts to cozy hoodies to journals and hats, we have everything you need to represent your favorite podcast. Ready to gear up? Click on the Buy Our Merchandise Here link in the podcast notes, or head on over to our website, elevateyourride.co, and click on the Store tab. Thank you for your support. Make sure to like, follow, and share our platform with your friends.
Do you run or work out when you go to the shows?
It depends if I have a race that I'm training for and there's a key workout. If it's going to be a week-long horse show or week and a half long horse show, and can't take the time off of running to be fit for the race, then I will. In my later years in life, I did that more when I was like in my early 20s. I was a little bit more pig-headed about planning major events next to each other. But now I really don't. I let myself have the time off. It's my vacation. I'm not out here going to Mexico or Europe and laying by a pool. So the horse shows are my vacation. And I definitely do take my foam roller. I do a little bit of stretching. I do some mobility just so I feel good. And Ellie, to your point, I feel like it is not talked about enough how hard it is to show when it's freezing cold. Like your
Oh my
body
god.
gets so locked up. It's
It's
so tough.
awful.
Yeah. So I try to make sure I do really good warm ups for myself at the horse show. But yeah, I treat it like a vacation. I have a great time. I don't worry about working out. And the whole thing is a workout anyway. So I just focus on enjoying it.
Yeah, that's so important because if you're working out, like I actually just made a blog post about this. So if you guys want to learn more about why it's so important to warm up before you ride, I definitely recommend going and reading that. But I talk a lot about how when you warm up your body, you're getting the blood flowing, you're increasing your heart rate, all these things to properly get your muscles activated, properly get your joints lubricated, all those things. And the colder it is outside, the more that you're going to be asking for injury, the more decreased your performance is going to be, like all these things. Like it's really important when it's cold outside to make sure you're properly warmed up. And like I said a minute ago, when I get cold, I hunch up my shoulders and I hold a lot of tension in my traps. So if I don't release that tension, then my neck is going to be really sore. And then when I'm riding, that's all that I'm thinking about. I'm not able to focus on my timing, putting my heels down. There's no way I'm going to be able to get my shoulders down and back, right? Because they're so tense.
Yeah.
So making sure that if you're showing somewhere where it's cold, you need to prepare for that.
Yes. And another big part of just fitness and riding is knowing your weak spots. So we all know what our horse's weak spots are. We all know if they have a tougher time on the right or the left lead or right or the left pivot, but knowing your own weaknesses and making sure that you take some action to help yourself out is just as important as all the work we do to help our horses out. I'm a full-time working amateur. I don't have I don't have a ton of time for myself, but I'm out here getting my horse massage and acupuncture, and he has everything he could ever want and need. But I have to remember when it comes to myself, he needs me to be performing at my peak as well, because that helps him. So I have a little list that I run through in my head of all of the different parts of my body that might be sore or achy or need a little bit of extra help. And I try to warm those up before I get on. My right ankle always gets really tight. So even if it's just standing on the edge of the stall and letting my Achilles stretch out before I get in the saddle. Just little things. They don't have to be huge, conspicuous movements, but they go a long way toward helping you and your horse.
Yeah, for sure. Can you tell me a little bit about the injuries that you've had and how you've been able to recover from them and how they've impacted your riding?
Yeah, this is definitely a topic I'm very passionate about because I have had my fair share of injuries from running. Running is such a big overuse injury sport. You do the same motion over and over again, it's extremely repetitive. So I go and get active release therapy, ART. You can find a certified active release therapist on the website activerelease.com. And basically, what it is, it's almost like a type of chiropractic where they help clean out some of the scar tissue and junk that gets in your fascia so that you can move a little bit more freely. What I have loved so much about the doctor who I work with is he never says, "Oh, stop running." Because if you go to your general physician and you tell them, "My knee hurts because I've been running a lot," they'll say, "Maybe just don't run. Maybe just stop doing
Right?
that."
Same with horse people. Like you go to the
Yeah,
chiropractor or the physical therapist and they're like, oh, just don't run. And you're
No,
like,
it's not in.
that's not going to happen.
that's
That's
actually
not
not
an
a choice.
option.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll not be taking 2 weeks off of riding. Thank you very much. You'd have to saw my leg off, and even
Right,
then.
we will find a way.
Yeah.
Exactly. Doing active release therapy has really helped me. But I'm also a really big fan of, I call it prehab instead of rehab. So I do some different PT exercises to try and prevent those injuries before they start. If you go to a physical therapist for any injury ever, there's a few exercises that they will give you. I feel like no matter what the injury is. So banded lateral steps are a move that I'll be doing them till the day I die. Like they keep so many injuries from happening. And if you don't know what they are, just Google banded lateral steps. Get yourself a set of cheap therapy bands, and I guarantee you it will change how you move, even just at a walk, or if you're a runner for showmanship, and that's the only time you run, then this will still help you. It will help keep your knees and ankles and hips, all those joints, it will help keep them stable. So, really big fan of doing those types of things. And then foam rolling too. I think foam rolling gets a bad rap because it freaking hurts. It's not comfortable, but it can prevent
Yeah.
a lot of injuries because it's kind of like our horses, right? If they have one little thing throwing them off and then they move and exercise with that misalignment, it's going to cause an injury. It's the same for us. While I know that us amateurs will never give ourselves the same level of care we give our horses, at least give yourself some of the care you give your horse.
Yeah, and like Jennifer said with the foam rolling, sometimes it can be painful. And like I said earlier, I tell my clients to push through a little bit of discomfort. But once it starts being painful, you got to back off. Like you got to listen to your body when it's telling you that something is painful. But foam rolling is uncomfortable. And it's because you're probably trying to foam roll a muscle that's a little tight or a little angry. Like, of course, it's going to be uncomfortable, but you need to learn how to push through that because that uncomfortableness needs to be taken care of.
Yeah.
So, one question that I have for you is last episode, you talked a little bit about how you were having back pain and you went and saw a chiropractor that worked on changing your breathing and they had you focus more on belly breathing as opposed to chest breathing. And you mentioned how that dramatically increased your physical performance. But my question is, did that actually help with your back pain at all?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. My back and diaphragm and pelvis were so tight from the way I was breathing. And I notice if I breathe like that, I have way less stiffness in my shoulders, my low back, my pelvis, my hips. It's crazy. It feels like a lie because it worked so well, but it really did help.
How long did you feel it took before you could see results there?
I went in and had an adjustment. This was with the active release therapist. I don't know if it was just isolated to the breathing changes or if it was the adjustment I got in conjunction with the breathing changes, but I would say like within a week I noticed a pretty big difference.
That's great.
Yeah, it's one of the like easiest, cheapest things you can do to help yourself is really learn how to breathe while you're exercising. And I also notice it with strength training. I worked with a personal trainer pretty recently. We would talk about my form, but I'd never had of anyone help me breathe while I'm lifting. And she really would be like, inhale for this part of the lift and then exhale for this part of the lift. I could push so much more weight. I noticed I recovered a lot faster. Just a simple change really did help the whole process.
Lauren, does that sound familiar?
I was just thinking that. Yeah, I'll be going and doing a lift, and Ellie's like, I don't think you're breathing. Let's do that again. Breathe in here, breathe out there. Don't hold it in so long, or hold it in a little longer. And it does make a huge difference. And
Yes, and I know I'm not the only one that has finished a pattern and had come out and had your horse trainer say, "Did you breathe a single time in that pattern?" And you'd be like, "No."
And they don't ask you that because your pattern went well. They ask you that
exactly.
because you messed up or something bad happened during your pattern.
Absolutely.
How did having a back injury impact your performance in the saddle, and how has it changed now that you feel like your back pain has gotten a lot better?
I didn't really have what I would call a back injury. It was more just like being really sore and stiff. And I totally have computer neck. I sit at a desk all day long and I work on my computer. So, yeah, when I'm having pain of any kind, I ride a lot more protectively. So, I might hunch my shoulders a little bit more. I might not lean as forward as much over the jumps. I'm just riding protectively is really the only word I can think to describe it. Whereas if I have no pain at all, I ride much more correctly and it's much more of a straightforward connection with the horse. So I think making sure that you don't have physical pain yourself is just as important as making sure your horse does not have physical pain.
So you went and you saw the chiropractor. It sounds like they probably gave you some exercises. Did you do those exercises and were one and done? Or do you have to continuously work on keeping yourself from having recurring back pain?
Oh my gosh, because I'm a runner, I have all kinds of little injuries that pop up. So it's not just the back stuff, it's knees, it's hips, it's all the things. It's going to be a constant goal to make sure that I don't have those injuries. You can't be out here working out like this and riding and being active without making sure that you're fit and strong. So I try to regularly go to my active release therapist probably every 6 to 8 weeks if I can. If I've got something going on, I'll definitely go a lot more frequently, but I try to keep up like a maintenance schedule. And I think about working out the same way. It's like brushing your teeth. You just got to do it. I don't, it's just part of staying healthy. You want to have healthy teeth. You want to be able to eat food comfortably. You got to brush your teeth. Same thing with working out. You want to be able to do your activities and feel strong and feel healthy and stay doing them for many years of your life. You got to keep working out. Same thing with the prehab and all of the little exercises that we do to be healthy.
Yeah, that's the thing about either an injury or when you have some sort of a pain somewhere, you'll go to the doctor or you'll go to the physical therapist and they'll give you something to do for it. But if you only do that for a couple of weeks and it goes away, and then you stop doing those preventative things, it's going to come right back.
Thank you for listening to Elevate Your Ride. Find us on Instagram and Facebook, all linked in the podcast notes. We'll see you next time. The information provided by Elevate Your Ride is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended as medical or professional advice. While we discuss health and fitness topics related to equestrians, the content provided through this podcast is not a substitute for professional advice. The views expressed by the host and guests on Elevate Your Ride are their own and should not be taken as professional guidance. We strive to provide accurate and up to date information, but we cannot guarantee that the information will be applicable to every individual listener or that it reflects the most current research or guidelines. Before making any changes to your health and fitness routine, we strongly recommend consulting with a qualified professional who can provide personalized advice based on your individual needs and circumstances. Elevate Your Ride and its creators will not be liable for any direct, indirect, consequential, special, exemplary, or other damages arising from the use of information on this podcast. Thank you for listening to Elevate Your Ride. We are committed to providing high quality content and appreciate your trust in us as a source of information for your health and fitness journey.